Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS. Continuing on with college football week 13. Got a good one here. ACC matchup, NC State on the road at Georgia Tech. Let's do it.
Welcome to the SWAS. The SWAS. SWAS. Hey, get the SWAS.
All right, like I said, we got NC State on the road at Georgia Tech. Looks like Georgia Tech is laying mostly 8.5. I do still see a couple nines. It was at 9 for most of the week. Looks to be mostly at 8.5 now. Total's in at 51.5 or 52, depending on your sports book. Let's take a quick look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action seems to be coming in on the NC State side. Just over 55% of the tickets and about 60% of the money. As I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with this new look NC State offense. CJ Bailey at quarterback. This is a pass first offense all the way. They're 39th in pass frequency, and honestly, he's made me a believer. Look at the NC State passing numbers this year. He didn't even play the first 2.5 games. 41st in yards per pass attempt, 22nd in success rate per dropback, 32nd in effective pass, which plays directly into the weakness, according to this graphic, of the Georgia Tech defense. 70th in yards per pass attempt allowed, 92nd in success rate per dropback, 81st in effective pass. So will NC State be able to throw the ball on this Georgia Tech defense here? In my opinion, I think the answer might be yes. I know they didn't do much in their last game against Duke. Duke's got a great defense, a much better defense than Georgia Tech does. Just 4.7 yards per attempt. It was a bad game for CJ Bailey against Duke. But look at the 4 games before that. These are electric passing numbers over a 4-game sample. Over 305 passing yards per game, 53.3% success rate per dropback, 10.15 yards per attempt. Yes, you can point at the defenses. I mean, you got Stanford in there, questionable secondary. Wake Forest, obviously not a good defense. Syracuse, questionable defense. Cal's a pretty good defense, though. He was throwing the ball on Cal. And either way, Georgia Tech's defense against the pass isn't even very good. So you could probably throw Georgia Tech right in the list with these teams. And another thing I like for CJ Bailey here, he's made 6 starts as quarterback for NC State. Only 2 have been on the road. Weirdly, he's been the quarterback for 8 games. He's only made 2 road starts. He went nuts in those 2 road starts against Clemson and Cal, too. 2 good defenses, over 295 passing yards per game, 8.65 yards per attempt. Success rate up close to 47%. Now, to be fair, a lot of the production in the Clemson game was kind of in garbage time. Clemson was up big, and they drove the ball, scored a few touchdowns late in the game. But still, Cal, that's a great defense on the road. He was slinging the ball in that game. So I'm trying to figure out why this line is at 9, right? Because at first glance, I was expecting this line to be 6, 6.5. It's all the way up at 9. I get it. Georgia Tech might be inflated a little coming off the big win over Miami, but in my opinion, the way NC State's been playing the last handful of games, this should be under a touchdown. I think maybe this might be a reason people are starting to respect the Georgia Tech pass defense. Yes, they got thrown on by Miami in their last game, 8.9 yards per attempt, over 45% success rate per dropback. That's Miami. Everybody gets thrown on by Miami. That doesn't move the needle for me. If you look at their previous 4 games, they actually were playing some solid defense against the pass, 6.25 yards per attempt, success rate just under 38%. Those are great numbers against the pass there for Georgia Tech. But the thing is, look at the opponents. I mean, Virginia Tech, run first offense all the way. Notre Dame, run first offense all the way. North Carolina, run first offense all the way. And then Duke. Duke is a pass first offense, but they're not a very good pass first offense. I mean, it's pretty much Malik Murphy and nothing else out there in Duke offensively. So although Georgia Tech does have these impressive numbers against the pass in the 4 games before the Miami game, doesn't really move the needle for me, considering all 3 times Georgia Tech has seen a dangerous passing attack, they've gotten cooked. Against Syracuse, Louisville, and Miami, the 3 passing attacks they've seen this year, over 332 passing yards allowed per game, 10.47 yards per attempt, 53.5% success rate per dropback. So every time Georgia Tech has seen a passing attack, the defense has looked terrible, and NC State has shown us this can be a pretty dangerous passing attack. So I don't really understand why this line is all the way up at 9. Maybe I'm jumping the gun. Maybe I'm giving CJ Bailey too much credit. But, I mean, he's shown us if you give him a clean pocket, he can make the throws. Yes, maybe he struggles a little bit under pressure. I'll give you that. But is he going to be under pressure in this game? Georgia Tech doesn't have much of a pass rush. They're 121st in pressure rate, 88th in sack rate, 132nd in pass rush grade, up against an NC State offensive line that's been pretty damn good in pass protection. 20th in pressure rate allowed, 48th in sack rate, 6th in pass blocking grade. So I really don't see an avenue to CJ Bailey being under duress here. He should have plenty of clean pockets to throw from, and he's been very good from a clean pocket this year. Not to mention, Georgia Tech runs a lot of man coverage. They're 36th in the country in man coverage frequency. NC State's passing numbers much better against man coverage. Their wide receiver, Concepcione's been pretty quiet. Started off the season on fire, been pretty quiet recently. He's long overdue for a big game. I think he might go off in this one. I really don't understand the line. I think NC State should light Georgia Tech's defense up. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe I'm not seeing it clearly. But I like the matchup for NC State offensively. Now, when we flip it over and look at the other side, no question Georgia Tech's offense has the edge here. That's not a discussion. I mean, Georgia Tech should be able to move the ball in this game. They're 33rd in yards per carry, 42nd in success rate per rush, 40th in effective rush. NC State's run defense, I mean, it hasn't been practical joke terrible, but by NC State standards, it's definitely a down year. I mean, they're used to having a very good run defense. That's not really what they have this year. Now, you can look at NC State's last 6 games and say, hey, this NC State run defense is coming around. And you wouldn't be wrong in saying that. They do have good numbers against the run in their last 6 games. 3.61 yards per carry allowed, 36% success rate per rush, just 122 rushing yards allowed per game. Those are good numbers. But you look at the opponents, I mean, you got Northern Illinois. That's a MAC program. Wake Forest throws the ball, and they're not good. Syracuse pass-first offense. Cal pass-first offense. Stanford, okay, Stanford can run the ball a little bit, but Stanford did run the ball a little bit on NC State. And then Duke, pass-first offense. So, okay, you can point at these numbers and say NC State's run defense is getting it together. Maybe there's some truth to that, but there's no rushing attack on this graphic that even belongs in the same discussion as Georgia Tech. I mean, Northern Illinois is the only rushing attack on here. And they're a MAC program. So, yeah, the numbers look better, but they haven't really seen a rushing attack. Georgia Tech, definitely a rushing attack. But honestly, the question when it comes to Georgia Tech's offense, it's right here. Haynes King, quarterback. What's the status with Haynes King? I'm reading he's a game-time decision. First 7 games with Haynes King at quarterback, they were averaging almost 33 points per game, 50% success rate, about 6.7 yards per play. This offense was looking fluent. The following 2 games after he got hurt, they were averaging less than 10 points a game. 9.5 points per game, 4.66 yards per play. We're talking night and day difference with and without Haynes King on the field here. Then we have their last game against Miami. And, okay, this is a bit confusing trying to unpack what happened in this game. First of all, Georgia Tech won, which is awesome. I wish I bet it. I said Georgia Tech or pass on the show. I didn't bet it. Wish I bet it. But Georgia Tech won the game. Haynes King did play, but he has an injury to his throwing shoulder or his elbow. Correct me. I think it's his throwing arm. And he only dropped back to pass 6 times. So Haynes King did play. He ran the ball 20 times, but didn't drop back to pass much in the game. Now, here's the confusing part. The quarterback that dropped back to pass 10 times in that game, it wasn't Zach Pyron, who had been the quarterback that started the last 2 games when Haynes King was hurt. It wasn't him. It was Aaron Philo. I think it's Philo. If it's Philo, I apologize. A freshman. So Zach Pyron, the guy who had started in Haynes King's spot the previous 2 games when they were only averaging 9.5 points per game, he didn't play. This freshman, Aaron Philo, played. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If this freshman, Aaron Philo, if he takes the field even for 1 snap against NC State, he becomes ineligible for his red shirt. So now Georgia Tech's taking their future into consideration here. Do they want to have this kid active and send him in here? What if Haynes King's shoulder gets aggravated? Because if they have to put Zach Pyron in at quarterback, we've seen this Georgia Tech offense just doesn't work when Pyron's in there. I mean, the offense looked terrible in the 2 games he played. So if they put Philo in, they ruin his red shirt. So are they just going to roll with Haynes King and hope his shoulder's okay? As of right now, we don't even know for sure if he's playing. He's a game-time decision. His shoulder clearly wasn't right in the Miami game. There's a lot of questions here, a lot of moving parts with the Georgia Tech quarterback situation. If you're a Georgia Tech fan and I messed that up, leave it in the comments. I think that's exactly the situation, but if I messed that up, let me know. But yeah, the point is, going into this game, I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident that Haynes King is going to be out there, and if he is out there, is he going to be his 100% self? Because clearly there was something wrong with his throwing arm in that Miami game, which is why I am on the other side here. I took NC State +9. I'm a little worried about the line. Like I said, it seems suspiciously high. I would imagine this is going to be a bit of a square public dog. Not that that really bothers me, but little sketched out about the line. When I bet this early in the week, I expected it to close at close to 7. Really hasn't moved at all. So maybe I'm not seeing the board clearly. Maybe I'm completely off in this market. In my opinion, CJ Bailey should have no problems throwing the ball on this Georgia Tech defense. Sure, Georgia Tech's going to run the ball on NC State, but this line should not be more than a touchdown, in my opinion. So I'm on NC State. I even sprinkled the money line. Bit of a public dog. Don't care. Let's do it, Wolfpack. Live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go through this game. We'll go through the Thursday night NFL game. Go through the NBA slate like we always do. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. If you'd like to see all the bets I personally have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see all mine as well as everyone else on the staff there. Let's have ourselves a good one. Please remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.